just do that. This is being recorded, so if you didn't get a chance yeah, to see the whole interview, not a problem. You will get a chance to see it once I send you the link. If you haven't registered, you just got the link now. Please, 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 if you don't mind, put your put your email address on the chat. Then we will send you the link. We'll send you the link, and then you can view that in your own time, or you can forward to your friends and families, whatever's easy for you. Once again, just want to say thank you for everyone for connecting on time, and we have Sister Aisha here already ready with us. So, and just a reminder to everyone, very, very important to help us, to help you, and also help the presenter. If you can put your speaker system on mute, we will have questions and answers. So the format is for the next 20 minutes, we're going to have Sister Aisha. We're going to be talking about her life, her work, Fons Vitae, what inspired her, the journey through, and some of the publication. Then with the next 20 minutes, we're going to talk about the Children's Ghazali project, which is really something really important for everyone. And I think the whole Ummah needs to really buy into it. What is it? What's so important? Why is it important? And then we're going to open up for Q&A. Now, questions we can take it on the chat, or we can actually directly do it via the screen. If your mic is working, it's up to you if you want to have the video on. It's up, whichever way you feel comfortable. It's a safe space. Everything's private and confidential. You don't have to worry about anything in any sense. Right. So without further ado, I'm going to start off with our Sister Aisha here. Bismillah. So, you know, obviously anyone who's actually knows Fons Vitae, been to the website, maybe read some of the publications over the last, couple of decades or so. It's a not-for-profit, we know. It's an academic press publishing interfaith scholarly works focused on world spirituality. It's peer-reviewed and key works in Arabic and Persian, particularly the fields of Sufism. So, you know, what inspired you? How did it start? Well, let's start off with yourself. How did you get into all this? What inspired you? Why Fons Vitae? Tell us some of the journey through this.
Well, I think, I'm sitting right now in my kitchen, and there's the couch behind me where all the Ghazali has been written. But this house was built by my father when I was born, and I lived here for, until I went to university. And then in 1961, I went to college in New York and studied world religions because I was really concerned. I wanted to know what happens to people when they die. What's the whole death deal? And I thought surely if one studied all the great faith traditions, one would have an idea of what is the whole idea. And then after university, I actually majored in Hinduism. Islam was not taught in the 60s. It wasn't even on the radar at all. And after that, I happened to be living in New York City. I went into filmmaking and happened to read in the New York Public Library Al-Ghazali's autobiography. It's called The Munketh Min Dalal, The Deliverance from Error, yes, among other books I was reading. And when I read it, my hair stood on end. He said, he's speaking to his soul. You are on a crumbling bank, up, up and away, if not now, when? And that rang every bell for me because, that's the whole point. If not now, when are we going to make the vertical effort back? And in the end, I was married to a Venezuelan film director. We became Muslim together. We were invited to Al-Azhar, and we sailed over on a freighter to Marrakech, to Tangiers in the summer of '68, got a car and drove all the way to Cairo, the idea of the long Hajj. Had stopped in Libya. I was pregnant. Our daughter Hajar was born in Beida, which is the last capital in Libya. It was still under King Idris, Allah Yerhamu. We reached Egypt, which was still being bombed by Israel, and began 10 years of study there, Hadith, Quran. And our main thing was also, just as you've been listening to these wonderful talks from Harun Sujic and our brother Abdul Adim, how they went out looking to see these wonderful realized saintly beings. And there were three giants living in Cairo in the 70s, Sheikh Abdul Halim Mahmoud, who became the head of Azhar and the head of the Islamic world, Sheikh al-Islam, Sheikh Hafiz Tijani, and Sheikh Saleh al-Jafri. And so we lived there, and there were many young people like us you know, from Italy, France, a lot of people we know today, you know, that we work with. And after 10 years of that and many trips working with Saudi Arabia, making films on the Hajj, lots of stuff, and my son Mustafa grew up there, we moved to Cambridge in 1979 with the idea of giving back, because we were raised in America and even in England at a time where people thought Islam was something like 1,001 nights, camels and harems, that kind of thing. But we felt it was ghazbu anna, our responsibility, not only to give back, but to bring out books of the Islamic spiritual and classical heritage in the most beautifully produced form, because many of the books, besides, I mean, there were always the ones done by the Orientalists published by Oxford and Cambridge, but the ones being done by the Muslim world were really in not beautifully typeset or produced. So we set up the Islamic Text Society in Cambridge in '79. And interestingly enough, of course, we were publishing all kinds of works, but our first Ghazali was done by Abdul Hakim Murad, Death and What Comes After. He was just getting out of Cambridge. I mean, he was still a student, and he used to come for supper, and he did that book and then went on to do On Breaking the Two Desires, etc.
Ghazali books, yeah.
Yeah, and because he did Ghazali, but we love Ghazali, and so we're publishing Ghazali, you see, and everything else, you know, hadith, tafsir, everything. And the Text Society really, mashallah, really changed the standard for Islamic publishing, in my opinion. I think everybody copies this, and that's great. But in 91, 90, my parents here in Louisville were going definitely downhill. My father had had his legs amputated. He couldn't walk because, I mean, he'd gotten gangrene. My mother was in a walker, and it seemed like whatever happened to honor thy mother and father, you know, the second after worshiping God. So it was time for me to come home. It was their turn. So I came back here to my family home in 1990, 91. I was working on a booklet for the Saudi Arabia. It was called Understanding Islam and the Muslims. It's a booklet we've enlarged to 100 pages, but it was for their big event in Washington, D.C. called Saudi Yesterday and Today. I was doing that in the transition. And then I got back here, and Mother and Daddy, it took about 2.5 or 3 years to die. I worked in a university as well. And then when they died, I went to Bosnia, and I have some Bosnian sisters here right now, because Abdul Hakim Winter was, of course, very involved with Bosnia. And
during the war, this is during the
during the war, 93, 94, he was driving clothes there. So what I did was I got students to contribute toys and items of need, and called up the former, the Prime Minister of Bosnia, Haris Salajic. He'd been one of the students in Libya with us. I had known Haris since I was 26 years old. So there he was, Prime Minister. So I came over with Madame Turkovic, his ambassadress in Zagreb, and worked in all of the camps, which was hyper depressing. And I even discovered I had post-traumatic stress, because when I was in Bosnia with these wonderful ladies just 2 summers ago with Abdul Hakim and you, right? When the plane landed in the tarmac of Sarajevo, I couldn't stop crying. I didn't, because the whole time I was there, of course you couldn't go there. Yes. You know, I mean, but even my translator, Belma, her parents were there. But I mean, it was the relief. I mean, it was more than I could take. I mean, I'm crying now. By the time I had dealt with the women and people in the wild camps and everything that I saw. And anyway, so I worked in Bosnia, and I was able to raise the funds to have a lot of books translated into Bosnian and shipped in. And this was the daughter, Hussa, the daughter of the present king of Arabia, the older man.
The Arabic books you were translating.
Abdul Hakim helped with all this. We did the Life of the Prophet, Understanding Islam and the Muslims, because most of the Bosnians I met anyway didn't know an awful lot about Islam. And so then after that project, then there was the Muslims in Tibet. That was the next project. And then by the time 96 or 7 happened, Abdul Hakim told me, why don't you go back into publishing, make it interfaith, but really mostly Islam, but call the company Fons Vitae, which means fountain of life,
Nice.
right? But it's also Al-Kawthar, you know, the river. And so he said, don't call it Dar al anything. And he's right, you know, because it wasn't long after that before September 11th happened. And I mean, the FBI like knocked on my door to see what was going on here, because we're a very small educational charity. The offices are, my office is the kitchen.
Yes.
My husband works out of his office, his room.
Yes.
And the Fons Vitae is in my father's basement and garage. We have zero overhead. Any funds we raise, they're used, you know, for real things. So anyway, so the idea of Fons Vitae was born. And that's about to sort of lead into the Ghazali project. I mean, I began publishing all the things. If you look at the Fons Vitae list, it's really beautiful, you know, and many levels. We have things of some of other traditions, some of symbolism, really deep, a few with art, but a sort of a glorious presentation, you know.
You have some of the Haddad series, you have some of the Ghazali series. It's and quite interesting. For your time, you did a lot of translation of the Persian texts as well, which was quite.
Well, also one of our most beautiful books was done by a Muslim in France, and it's we had it translated from the French. It's called The Spiritual Teachings of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. It's 300 or 400 of the most spiritual of the Hadith, but after each one in Arabic and English are the tafsir by basically the awliya. Imagine reading not your own or somebody's tafsir today of a hadith, but reading what Ghazali said or what Al-Junaid said. Imagine, I mean, reading this. Hamza Yusuf, I remember he proofread it for me, and he said when he started reading it, he was in some hotel, he was sick, and he said, but by the time he had finished it, he was healed. So that's a book I'm very proud of, not to mention all the others. I mean, we have a wonderful tafsir collection that we do with the Ahl al-Bayt, Prince Ghazi's group in Jordan. You know, some of the huge tafsir. You know,
and a lot of the things are very academic, very good in academic standards.
Yeah, yes and no, but I try to make things accessible to people, and that's where the Ghazali project happened. Right. Is to be quite honest, you know, here I am loving Ghazali. Mm-hmm. And then I finally picked up Abdul Hakim's book 40 about 8 years ago, 8 or 9. Time is very fast. And to think I didn't even start Fons Vitae till I was well into my early 50s. Can you imagine that? It shows anybody out there that your life begins at 50. When your children finally are somehow starting their lives, you get your own life back. So women really, for a woman starting somewhere just after 50, it all happens, you know, it's a great period. But anyway, so I decided to start reading some of the books I'd published, you know, but in a nice way, like read them. And I thought, well, I'll start with death and what comes after, because I'm, you know, getting closer to the big departure. And I picked up Abdul Hakim's book, and it was too hard for me. It was so profound, so scholarly, so wonderful. On each page, I'd be holding on. There'd be a hadith in Quran, but even what they're saying, the levels of meaning just going upward. And then it was like paradise. And then I would shut the book, and I'd still be me. I couldn't change my lens. I didn't know how to read those pages and return and actually turn about and be able to use them the way I viewed my own life from that moment on.
It's quite interesting to see you know, segmented it into, you know, Islam, world religion, but a couple of the main sections would be symbolism, sacred art, and another one on wisdom. You know, I know it says Thomas Merton's series. It's more or less wisdom, isn't it? You could say. Wisdom.
Well, what is wisdom except how to be in the state of being you hope to reside in it before you die, so you can die correctly. I mean, that's what they're all about. All this emptiness and remembrance. I mean, when we did a book with Prince Ghazi and the Dalai Lama called the something about Buddhism and Islam, the common something. Yeah. Well, we had a meeting with the Dalai Lama to to present it. You know, it was sort of a launch in Bloomington. And we invited many wonderful Muslims, Imam Clayman al-Amin, a whole group of Muslims were with him on the podium. And I didn't know what to say. So I said, Your Holiness, you know, in Buddhism, the point is emptiness and mindfulness. In Islam, it's fakr, holy poverty, emptiness, humility, and dhikr, remembrance of the one, you know, same thing in a way. So there have been many wonderful moments. You know, we had a wonderful Congress with the Dalai Lama in San Francisco, I think in 2004. He wanted to meet all the Muslim dignitaries and represented the Muslim world. And we were all around a gigantic table in San Francisco. And he stood and he said, you know, he said, the media is mercilessly destroying you all. You know, I'm here to be your defender. And he had called for this conference.
Moving on to the Ghazali project, would you like to talk more about the Ghazali Children's Project? Why did you have that as a...
Well, I started having grandchildren. I have 4. And Hamza called up one day and he was in a really sad, it was during Ramadan. And he said, you know, my children, although they attend Islamic schools, it's not happening. And we talked, he said, what about we do the Ghazali for children? And we get the recent Dar al-Manhaj, the beautiful edition brought out in 2011, celebrating 900 years of Ghazali's life, in which all the manuscripts, it's the most critical, beautiful edition of everything collected. And he said, we will give this out book by book so that we will all be going, we'll be going from the same piece. And so the idea was we would do this. So everyone said, don't start with book 1, the book of knowledge, it's too hard. Because in the book, first book, Ghazali sums up what's to be in all 40. It's sort of, if you say the Quran is contained in the fitrah, that kind of direction. But Hamza also explained to me that the Ihya al-Ulumuddin is like the Quran in a usable order, because Ghazali builds up here and then this idea, and this is on top of it. So in doing this, we kept every single, I mean, I picked, well, first we had to get it into English. So I had to first find scholars who are willing to do it. And Abdul Hadi Honorkamp from Georgia, he did the Book of Knowledge, which is really something. And then once I had that manuscript, while it was being perfected by a specialist Ghazali team, you know, making sure every reference, every hadith, everything. But we also made sure that the English was normative, so that a school teacher or a parent could read it. It wouldn't be beyond, you know, the language would be more normal. And so then I took that manuscript and sat on this couch here, as I said, for 4 years, saying how, first I read it and I circled every single key idea, thinking it has to be exact. You can't leave out anything, because what if some parent in Bangladesh, maybe this is the only time they're going to ever read Ghazali. Yes. It has to have everything. So then I circled all of the ideas, and then I thought, now how would I say this to, let's say, my granddaughter Layla, you know, who at the time was 5, now she's 14, right? How would I say this to her in a language that she can understand? But I didn't realize I was speaking in the language I speak to myself. We don't speak to ourselves in metaphysical, the transcendent yet immanent. We speak to ourselves in a very simple language in our heads. But because Ghazali uses amazing stories, we remember through stories. So I just took his fabulous stories, which you end up seeing when you start reading all these other writers of later centuries. You know, even Rumi, they've got all this stuff out of Ghazali. You know, it's just they take his stories and they redo them. But anyway, so I sat there and started thinking, and I realized that you had to do something. The illustrations were an issue because I wanted them really noble. I didn't want anything cartoony, because I mean, this is unbelievable work, and it deserves something as elegant and as beautifully produced. And thank goodness, after getting the book 1 and 2 written and just barely raising money from here and there, I was able to get a grant from the Templeton Foundation in Philadelphia for $750,000. They gave me 3.5 years to do books 1 through 6. You imagine getting those translated, put into children's language, illustrated and printed. It was like, since 1915, I never did anything. I couldn't even make my bed, you know.
So there's a lot of work that was put in.
You can't even imagine. It was like, but
some of the work's involving, because a lot of people don't appreciate. We are with you as a director of a well-known publication.
Yeah.
You just write a book and you scribble 3 things, and it looks nice, and you just price it so low, and you kind of think to yourself, people need to understand the work, the amount of work and effort that goes into it.
You just can't even imagine, even now that it's, well, it's, I mean, I'm now working right now, since we are in lockdown and soon Ramadan in a day or so, that working on the book of Hajj for children. You think, oh, why would children need to know that? Well, because children aren't idiots. They see death. They see grandparents die. They know about it. And this is directly confronting that the lives we're in right this minute are exactly the same as the Hajj. But the Hajj is a condensed practice for everything we should be in our very life, you know. And I do it through the storyline, because you have to have a storyline. Is the book opens, the first book, with what I loved about this project is in the first 5 minutes you can give children what is who they are really, what is the aim and purpose of their life. For example, all I would say to my little granddaughter Layla, because she couldn't stand me to read the stories, they were too long, and so I just would say, Layla, did you know that there are 2 kinds of learning? This is how Ghazali opens his work for scholars. There's the practical learning and every day, and then there's the real special learning. And then she said, well, special, what's that? Well, that's how to polish your heart. What? Oh, I didn't know I had 2 hearts. Yes, the physical one that, you know, pumps the blood, and then there's the one I'm talking to, because if I'm talking to any one of you, I'm not talking to your ears or nose or hair or molecules. I'm talking to you, and that is directly to your heart. Well, of course, we know what the heart is. It's the interface between time and eternity. That the Quran was revealed on the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him's heart, right? So she would say, polish it. Why? How does it get dirty? Oh, well, you know, if you don't say kind things, if you don't help your mother, if you don't share, whatever it is, and then she would say, but why would you have to polish that off? Oh, you didn't know there are 2 worlds. This one is very quick, and honestly, all the problems, it's full of problems too, brief and full of difficulties, but those are sent to you to polish your heart. But why do you have to polish your heart? Oh, because they're 2 worlds. This one is very brief, and the next one where you have full contentment and utter satisfaction. She stood up, she was only 5. We were in our house in Cairo, and she walked into the living room, and her father was playing, he plays the harpsichord. And she asked him, what are you playing? And he said, well, this is Bach or something. And she said, who is that? And he said, oh, he died about 250 years ago. And she put her fists on her hips and she said, Dad, he's not dead. He's in the next world. That little child, because the fitrah is so awake to the truth, she's already been told, you're pure, you're a golden heart. You are the fitrah. That's who you are. And you can get dirt on it by really not doing what has been asked of you by God. Yeah, but you've been given this life and all the problems that you're going to have as a chance to do it. And then there's no death. So a child's life is solved, like in the first 5 minutes. And you can refer back to it. And that's why we do one of the main things we do with the workbooks, the teacher's manuals, all activities.
Are very important. So you have the books themselves, and then
the workbook to give children a chance to go over and make sure they know the stuff, but in a fun way. But then we have the activities that come along with the teacher's manual. The teacher's manual also shows, it could be just a mother doing it at home, what Quranic passage or Hadith passage everything relates to in this particular chapter, etc.
So it's a
But
whole curriculum, you could say, for.
oh yeah, and then the children's interactive website is like amazing. But the thing that works the best is we have children constantly, they draw their golden heart and then they put a dot on it, things that they would objectively like to get rid of. I remember my grandson, when Bilal was about 4, I started mine at 3 and 5. They're now 6 and 8 or 7 and 9 or something. And they totally get it. I mean, they see everything through the lens of Ghazali. And so I could see him was saying, this is for not helping mommy. This is for, but you see their purity, their fitrah is intact. Because once I said to Sophia, a granddaughter of mine who lives in England, she'd just taken Layla's toys away. And I said, Sophia, which self took the toys away? Your real self or your lower false? She said, not my real self. So that, you know, when you're telling children, you're naughty, go to your room, they might identify and think, I'm naughty. But if they know they have to in the project, they will always think, that's beneath my dignity. We want a child to think, that's beneath my dignity. So they're always referring back to their essential fitrah, their true nature. Very important that people have self-worth, you know, and purpose, you know. But I mean, the two activities, the two things that are what make this project work are one, drawing the heart and putting the dots. And really, you know what? Parents should be doing the same thing. We all walk around and think we're all right. Well, we're not. If we made a list, we don't have to do a heart, of the things that we are finding, and particularly in being isolated like this, a list of all the things that you need to clean up about yourself, and then check them off or see how you're doing. It's like al-muhasibi, taking hisab of yourself every day, having a list of things to do, things that have to be dealt with. Instead of having it all in your mind, I should be less greedy, I should be whatever it is, have it right out in front of you, objectively. I think parents could benefit from this a lot. And I think the play acting that we do with the videos, if you go on the children's website and go to things to do and see the films the children have sent in from all over the world, if your child doesn't play act something, you can tell them anything and they hear it, but they haven't experienced it. For example, if my 2 grandchildren weren't sharing back and forth, I could say share. Well, that's like saying go to bed or eat spinach. Just share, right? So then I would say, all right, play act, not sharing. Oh, you can't have this. Oh, I won't let you have this. And then suddenly I would say, now share. You know, Medina, would you like to hold my truck? Bilal, would you love to, like, you know, eat my chocolate? And then they discover, oh, it wasn't bad. It felt good. I didn't lose anything by it. It was easy to do. The other day, some guest came and my granddaughter went over and gave the usual stupid handshake children do. They put the hand sideways, they look away. And I said, wait. Poor guest. She is going to show you the wrong handshake. Do it again. She did this. I said, now turn, take your hand and shake and look in the person's eye. And she did it. And you know what? She does it every time now because she knows what it is and she's felt it. So they have to experience everything. So we're very big. If you'll look on that website, you'll see all the children have sent in videos all over the world. A little girl in Sialkot, Pakistan, having her dolls backbite. I mean, you wouldn't believe what kids sent in. Of course, it's brilliant, you know. And
so, I mean, we're conscious of time. We've got around 25 minutes left. We've talked about Fons Vitae and some of the work and the Ghazali Children's Project. What are the challenges now? How many of the books have you got remaining to translate? What can we do to support the project?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the most horrifying things that just happened.
Because a lot of people just don't know the sheer amount of resources, hard work, time that goes into this. Yeah. Well, we need to raise the funds to print the Hajj book because we don't have a grant anymore. When the grant ended 2 years ago, any money we hadn't spent, they needed back. So we spent it. But anyway, we now have to do the Hajj book, and to do that for children, big and beautiful, highest quality, and to do the parents book and the workbook, teacher's manual, we need about $35,000 to $50,000. Now I'm thinking we're going to do a launch good because we did a launch good originally and that helped. But even
you know, the books are so popular. I guess you've seen from the documentary film we just did, they're being used in, you know, Taipei, all over South Africa, you name the country. And I just was told by Lucy, who is my cousin, who runs the publishing company. I mean, she does all the orders and all the finances. She said, although we published 7,000 of the Book of Knowledge, we only have 800 left. And you know how expensive it is? That's a huge book, and it's hardback and beautiful. Do I go into paperback? I'm not sure we should lose the quality. I don't. No. I think the kids need to have something, you know. So where am I going to get the money? And if we print it in China, which is cheaper, it takes 3 months to get over and back, printed and shipped. So I'm like I actually am worried. I know I shouldn't be. I know Allah will take care of this, but I mean, all of this is real stuff, you know.
So how many books are now remaining? So we've got the books that need to be completed. We have the workbooks as well, and then you have updating the website and the other.
Yeah.
How many books remaining are there? Maybe people could donate to a book in their name or their parents, whatever, you know.
Well, there are many books to go. Hamza said we should, after the Hajj, we should skip to book 20, which is, we've already got into English, which is Ghazali's Shama'il, the qualities of the character of the Prophet, and do that for children.
So you want to complete all 40 books, you would say?
Well, that's impossible in human life. Now, my dear friend Fatma Azam, who carried on the Islamic Text Society in Cambridge, she's really working hard. I would say that her effort is on the last 20 books of the Ihya, and mine is on the first 20. And I've got lots of them underway. But you can't imagine what it is to get the English translation from a scholar, the right scholar, and then have to make sure every single reference has been checked out, the hadith. It's endless, you know. Which collection of hadith, which thing, because maybe it wasn't in the Ghazali's manuscript. You see what I mean?
Which one's your favorite one, would you say? Out of the series, out of the ones translated.
All right, the book of Zakat, because it changed my life. You know, we published a book of Ibn Ata'Allah al-Iskandari talking, it was called, it was about not having self-direction. And I edited, I read it. This was years ago. And I thought, how can I not have self-direction, right? You know, how can there's so many of these books that 30 years ago, I didn't know what they meant. But as you get older, life is a gradual demonstration. You read these truths and finally you've been put through enough that it clicks in and you get it. So I didn't know what that meant until when I did the children's Zakat book. Honestly, I thought, oh, here we go. 2.5%, a mudda of grain, all this. How exciting is this going to be? Well, I made this story. All right, I'm going to pretend you're children. All right. The group of children that are in this story, they have an old man from the park that meets them in the hidden, forgotten garden, and he answers their questions through Ghazali, Hajj Abdullah. So they are on a merry-go-round in the park. You're about to hear my life-changing story, all right? And they notice some children can't ride the merry-go-round because they don't have the money, and they look a little shabby. And they're on their way to meet Hajj Abdullah, and they pass a beggar who's saying, Lillah, Lillah. And at that moment, they rush in and they say to Hajj Abdullah, why are some people rich and some people poor? Well, isn't that a question everyone has asked in their heart, right? And Hajj Abdullah says, first, go and give the man some money. You don't disappoint someone who reaches out, right? And when he's saying li, as we know in Arabic, li means for the sake of God, lillah. But li also means it belongs to. Inna lillahi, surely we belong to God. Mm-hmm. So they come back and he says, well, I'll just say, your name is Mizan, right? Mm-hmm. You pronounce it Mizan?
That's right, yeah.
What a great name. Does it remind you all the time of the scales?
I hope so. I hope to live up to that name.
It's better, okay. Anyway, so Mizan, he would say, so Mizan, this is Hajj Abdullah, did you give yourself, Mizan, your skills, your strengths, your place in time and space, who your parents are, your connections? No, you didn't give yourself to anything. We didn't give ourselves anything. Everything we have is on loan to us. It's an amana, it's a trust. And then Ghazali tells stories. Of course, his stories are off the charts. How not to give and how to give. Okay, how not to give. Once upon a time, there's this king, right? And of course, that's a law. And the king says to a very rich man who has lands, there's a hungry family in the town, take them food. Now, this man who has all this land, he thinks it's his, right? Often when I give charity, I think it's from what I earned, right? Forgetting that I didn't give myself the who I am, and which is the wherewithal that gives me the ability to have what I have. So he goes to the town and he holds the plate of food up very high. And by the way, I make children act out these stories. Get the children to act everything out. So he's holding up the plate of food and the people who are reaching up now feel low. How many times have I given to people here in Kentucky at roundabouts reaching out for money? Did I make them feel equal? Did they feel less? So then you don't give that way. The people also wonder, are we now beholden to him? Cut to the correct way to give. The king goes to a man, I named him Abdul Haq, and he was an orphan, and rich people raised him and taught him money and said, Abdul Haq, there's a widow in the town and she doesn't have the money to pay for her kids' education. Take her money. Now, he goes and he takes the plate of gold and he goes real low and he looks up into her face, holding the plate, and he says, oh, blessed lady, I beg you on behalf to receive what I bring on behalf of the king in order that I may fulfill my loan, my debt, my loan, my trust to God. And when I read that, my life became clear. We can't take credit for anything we do because we didn't give ourselves the skills that we have that we're doing them with, right? So finally, I see what it is. We are witness. There is Gray Henry right here, who's been given all this, right? And then we've given her things and we're sending her the things to address with what she's got. Like I've been given, it's like Allah was looking around and he looked through this window over here and he thought, gosh, the Ghazali Children's Project, that's what the Islamic world's now. The kids are all going into their digital stuff. So let's see, I can run it through her. She loves Ghazali, she's a publisher, she knows all the scholars, she already has everything for that. And then I'm gonna bring all the people who need her, and you're bringing some of the people here, but it's not mine, you see. And finally, there it is. Why is there no self-direction? Because it's all happening on its own. We just have to bear witness to what's really going on. Glory be, Amazing. And I learned that from writing the Ghazali children's book, on that.
I give you tawfiq to continue it.
And like we're going to give a Hajj, a Ramadan gift out. We're rapidly trying to get it done by tonight or tomorrow.
Okay, send me the details, yeah.
Send out the book of fasting for kids with some of the mothers and school teachers have made a curriculum for something every day for families in Ramadan. So
maybe we could do a session, like a half an hour, 45-minute session during Ramadan with yourself if people are interested. I'm sure they will be. But it's very important, people, please do purchase the series. The link is there. But now we're going to start on the questions and answers. So
I want to say one last thing. All right.
Yeah.
I was listening to Peter Sanders talk about his book of the mountains, meeting with mountains, and Harun Sujit, whom I've known since he was a child living in Mecca, since we were all in our 20s. These are people that I go back with a half a century, right?
Amazing. And
they were talking about their books, and I even wrote down, they said by this we aim to change the narrative that we have, that we live with, based on the best of what humanity is, these great, great teachers and beings, right? And Harun was saying, we can't approach God unless we are pure, right? And I suddenly thought, fine, I've been looking at those great beings and faces all over the world. And yes, So we realized we need to be pure to approach God. But what I realized that the lens of writing and the lens of photography, but where do you change your own lens on what you do? And honestly, I promise you, the Ghazali children's books, not even the grown-up books. I mean, because I read the children's books because it has everything and I don't have to really, I can understand it and remember it.
Impact is more.
That has changed the lens by which I view every single thing in my life. And it's a way to like be able moment by moment to finally start purifying. Otherwise, you would like to be like these people, but how do you get there?
Yeah.
I mean, what's the methodology? You need something systematic. That's what I'm saying.
Fantastic. We're going to open up for questions and answers now. So Q&A sessions. If you feel comfortable, you can write it down, or whatever's easy for you, or we can take it from the floor. So if you want to, there is a function to raise your hand, so we can take them. So looking at some of the questions now coming through, we've got around 40 people here. Are you? How many books of the Ihya will you have a children's version? What's the time frame for publishing the 20 books?
The time frame for what?
What's the time frame for publishing the 20 books of the Ihya? What's the age range as well?
Oh, the age range is, I see Lubna Hoke there. I think it's from 5 to 80, right?
Right.
It's for everybody. And she says, yes, Lubna. And the time, how long it will take, I don't know. And I won't live to see the end of it because it's that hard. Yeah.
Are you planning to do all 40 books?
For children? That would be the ultimate aim, but we're just going to do the best we can,
Yeah.
Because actually the book of knowledge, by the way, the first book contains all the other 40, because Ghazali gives you the 10 things you cannot do, period. I mean, period, and explains why. Yeah. And that's what the others really are deeper versions of.
Some more questions come through. Anybody who wants to raise their hands, you can do so. It's not a problem. If you want to write it down on chat, that's absolutely fine. Whichever way you feel comfortable.
Yeah, why don't people just talk to me? It would be so nice.
Yeah, it's much. I mean, that's the whole point of Zoom, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk to Aisha directly. Bismillah, go ahead. Do I see you? Okay, yeah. Hanan. So I'm just going to Hanan. Yeah, Bismillah, go ahead. I've unmuted you. Yes, go ahead. Hello, Hanan, go ahead. Hello? Hello?
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, once not.
Excellent. Thank you. Jazakallah khairan. I just want to say Jazakallah khairan for this. This is my first time just learning about the Ghazali books, and I've been wanting to, subhanAllah, I've been wanting to know more about it, and what better way than to, mashallah, learn from the author and the people, a part of the process. And I'm like, my heart is shaking, but I'm just very, very ecstatic and happy that we get a chance to do this. I just, from the bottom of my heart, Jazakallah khairan. I am in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada.
Oh, wow.
And I have 3 boys, 5, 3, and 1. And so this mama is very happy that there is a resource like this. So just Jazakallah khairan. It just means so much to us and the family. That's all I wanted to do.
I have to tell you, by 5, you should be well on your way. I watched by the time they're becoming 8, they can start telling you no, like, I don't want to do it. It's not,
Yes.
There's something you can catch them for a while where everything is magical. And then they start having a social life or having friends. This window, like from 6 to 8, where the whole thing can happen. Not that it can't happen for older people. I mean, I didn't even get interested until I was nearly 30. So.
Fantastic. So we've got folks from as far as Canada, America, all the way to Turkey, Malaysia. I can see some folks from Malaysia. So that's the wide range of listeners and viewers here. We've got another question come through. My beautiful little school established in Malawi has been inspired by your beautiful work. So they've got a school inspired by your work in Malawi, in Eastern Africa, Southeast Africa. It's amazing. And that's from Fatima Bibi. Thank you. Are there any other questions? I'm just looking. You can raise your hands if you want to. And
Hello.
yes, Assalamu alaikum. Go ahead, sister. Yeah.
Yeah, Sister Aisha, it's me, Sarah. I'm from Lebanon, from Beirut.
We've just been
It's
beginning.
really nice. Yeah.
And Sarah, over here is Lubna Hope that I put you in contact with, because
Assalamu alaikum.
to be joining in with her work for the teacher training programs.
Inshallah. It's really pleasure, and it's really nice every time I talk to you. It's as if, you get me excited to work more and do more, inshallah. MashaAllah, you really inspire me. I hope, inshallah, I'll be part of the project, and what I can do to help, inshallah, I'll try my best.
Well, mashallah, you all inspire me too. I'm kind of lonely. And when I talk on WhatsApp to my various friends or hear their voices from all over the world, it just brings light into my life, honestly.
Would the participants be interested in a session during Ramadan? So, related to the Quran, children, Ramadan.
We could do the fasting, because I'm telling you, I had no idea. The fasting is just like it is with wudu. It's not just from food and bodily things. You can't say anything. You can't listen to anything. I mean, it's the same stuff you've got to be doing. And to think you could give that a practice for a Ramadan period, it might take hold that you would just quit saying bad things and quit listening and quit looking. I mean, it's quite profound what Ghazali says about those things, really deep.
Great. And where can people purchase, quickest way? Would it be going to the website, the Fons Vitae one, or particularly the Ghazali website?
Yeah, there's a Fons Vitae and Ghazali website, and it calculates the postage and everything. We have a special on for the entire pack, all the adults and all the children's books. It's quite heavy because it's really quality stuff. And the postage, unfortunately, is a lot. But the truth is, since you're getting a third off, it probably comes about the same as if you bought the books,
We've just got a comment here. Salam is from Istanbul, someone from Istanbul. Salam from Istanbul. It's the first time to know the series of the books. Coming from Istanbul as well. I'm a bit surprised, and I'm both happy to know there's such an innovation. Sad bit for knowing this quite late. Well, it's always a start for something, isn't it? It's amazing. So we've got someone from Canada, someone from Malawi, someone from Istanbul, and obviously the US and UK. Any other questions? We've got about 5 minutes left. So
Lubna is waving. Are you going to speak, Lubna, or just wave?
I would love to speak.
Yes, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm the one who wants to speak.
So this is my son, Ayman.
Assalamu
Assalamu alaikum, Ayman.
I just
and he has something to say.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, like, I'm 20 now.
Yeah.
I just got back from London University. And when I came back, I was actually speaking to my mom about how I've just, suddenly got this urge to just really want to start learning a lot more about Islam. And then I was always thinking, where can I get a resource? And then, subhanAllah, it's upstairs in my house, through the Ghazali project, I've learned so much so far. And subhanAllah, I'm so thankful that you guys are doing this, because I know, in my heart, that this is going to change, a lot of people's lives. And, subhanAllah, it's changing my life. And, just to say jazakallah for that.
Oh, and
I
it's
just
not,
wanted to
yes,
just
Lubna.
wanted to say that he's 20 years old, and you were saying about the age that it's affecting.
Doesn't
And
matter.
my son is 20, and he is gaining so much from it. So just wanted to add that, just to talk about the age.
And Lubna herself teaches little ones and teenagers, and she's part of our teacher training project as well.
Amazing. So you have different age groups as well as the young, teenage.
It doesn't matter what age it is.
Yes, we have. Yeah, we're working on a way to make it more appropriate for teenagers, because obviously it is targeted at younger children, but it's very, very appropriate for any age. And I've learned such a great deal, and my son can vouch for that at the age of 20.
Fantastic.
Well, also, I think when I was writing the book of knowledge and the book of belief, I was really aiming at really little kids to get the basic foundations into them. But once you get to wudu and prayer, and now that I'm going into the Hajj, I'm just writing at normal English language, because if I think children are growing up with the books.
And
you know,
the interesting thing,
yeah,
this is a charity, this is a not-for-profit, you're just doing it for yourself. Amazing, and we've got so many young folks out there, professional folks, we should really be supporting such an initiative.
we need their help. We really need their help now. Really.
Do you need translators? There's a question here from saying, does Fons Vitae need translators?
I think always we need translators. People could be in touch with us.
Right. Okay. Question from India. From India. Are there any online teaching training courses?
Lubna, would you like to address that? We're building one right now.
Right.
We have Lubna in Dubai, and we have Adiba Ahmed in Solihull in England. We have Homera Wassel in Berkeley, you know, who heads a school. And now we're even having help from Sarah and others. And we are putting together so that on the children's website, you can go to any chapter of any book, let's say chapter 2, book 4.
Right.
And there will be a drop down where you will have, you know, videos of how to teach it, extra activities, things people are sending in. We have a little boy in England named Adam. Have you seen Adam's things? His mother's named Fatma, and Adam is doing his own teaching lessons. He's 8, and he's presented the 2 hearts, the 2 worlds, the whole thing, and he's very enthusiastic. And I'm thinking we've got to edit some of his things, because I think children like to learn from other children too.
Yes.
And then Sarah we're also having people who are interested in just some of the techniques. And there's a man called Imam Majid here in America. He was the head of ISNA, and he has a school called something like the Rays of Sun or something perfect, Happy Hearts, or it's over in somewhere near Baltimore. And they want me to come over and do videos on teacher training, take some of the things and present them. And with book 1, if you buy book 1, it's got a DVD in the back of how to teach the first 10 chapters to 5-year-olds, and then how to have conversations with 13. But we're going to take it, Lubna, aren't we, to other levels, because she's really dealing with, tell them what you plan to do with this.
Yeah, please, yeah. And what are the challenges and what resources, what do you need for help? What help do you need?
Well, teacher training encompasses many different facets, as you can imagine. So it also, in the Ghazali project, we're looking at different types of teachers. So you have teachers who are at Islamic schools. You have teachers who are just parents who want groups of children to come together. And you have just one-on-one parents and children. And so for each teacher, you may have different challenges. Some people have a lot of Islamic knowledge already. Some people don't feel they have very much. Some people have teaching skills. Some people don't feel that they do have teaching skills. And so in its essence, we're having to look at this whole spectrum of different types of people and the kind of different ways that they may be teaching as well, whether you're teaching in classrooms, whether you're teaching groups, whether you're teaching just one-on-one. So we're looking at all those different things, which, as you can imagine, is a huge and broad spectrum. So how to help? We basically are looking at the moment and at the whole kind of structure and trying to actually figure out which elements we need and how to address them. So at the moment, that's the process we're going through. And once we have something a bit more concrete, then we will, inshallah, definitely put that information out so we can get the help that we need in the areas that we need it.
Fantastic. Great. I've got some more questions coming through. Any plan for Ghazali for teens? Is any plan for accessible translation? Because it tends to be language.
Would you like me to address Ghazali for teens?
Anyone, really, yeah.
So I've been working on the Ghazali for teens for about 2 years. And at the moment, I'm going through the Book of Knowledge, which is such a deep book, as Sister Aisha said. It's got so much information in it. And it can be a huge, great resource. It has, I would say, life lessons in it, as Sister Aisha was mentioning, that are going to be used, you know, as children, as teenagers, as adults for the rest of your life. And so those ideas are really important to get across to teenagers. And so through the Ghazali project, inshallah, with the basis being the books that Sister Aisha has authored, we are looking at creating a curriculum specifically for teenagers. But it's going to take time because at the moment it's just a few of us doing it on our own. And inshallah, as much help and resources we can get would be amazing. But the intention is definitely to do something for teenagers as well.
That's really wonderful. You know, I think it's you know, it's very funny. When we were beginning the Ghazali project, we were just going ahead doing what was in front of us. We didn't know it was going to come out in 13 languages all over the world. We didn't know any of this. And even just as we're beginning the teacher training material, we're just starting. We don't even know where we're going, but it's there. It's just that we have to somehow, you know, bring it into.
You've got someone from Turkey who's willing to help. I'd love to contact and then someone contribute to the translation as possible. So,
and also any of them, Mizan, if anyone of them wants to get the documentary film that we've just done, you've got it, and of course they can come.
I'll send it out.
Yeah, they can come to me as well for that.
Final questions, a couple of questions. Any advice for publishing Seerah for children? What age range is? And are there going to be any Persian Sufi texts in the future that will be translated?
I didn't hear about the Persian.
Okay, so any Persian Sufism texts, hopefully in the future from Fons Vitae, perhaps?
We're always open to anything. We encourage brothers and sisters from the whole world to come in and be with us, you know, because, you know, we're a team. My son Mustafa, who's a filmmaker and is made that nice documentary. He's associate director with me now, but in times it's going to be his generation. Lubna has met him, and I mean, all of you all will be working together, addressing a world that may be somewhat different. And, you know, you all will need to be together working as a team.
Fantastic. I think we're going to take a final question from Rizwan. Rizwan, you wanted a question. Bismillah.
Yeah, I was, is somebody thinking of a similar project for Maulana Rumi? Because he's one of our greatest mystics, you know, and his tradition was the one of love. So I was thinking, because his work consists of stories, it would make an ideal, you know, if it's, just wondering, you know, I was hoping that a similar project could be done for Rumi's Masnavi.
I think a project like that is underway for children. It's a wonderful couple, and I'm so old I can't remember their names, but I'll find them. And they have a beautiful paperback book and workbook, and I've been with them on many occasions in Bradford. And so someone is doing a Rumi thing right now that's very well done.
Right, and we're going to take the final question from Hanan. I think if you unmute your Hanan, are you still there?
I'm so sorry. That was my apologies. That was an accident.
That was an accident. Okay.
Sorry.
Not a problem. Okay, so the time's up now. I'd like to thank everyone for participating. Really appreciate it. If you want to get more details about Fons Vitae as well as the Ghazali project, please leave your email address if you're not already on our mailing list. We'll send you a recording as well, recording of this interview. And given that most people consensus that would like Sister Aisha, if you could come back, maybe we'll schedule a date during Ramadan where you could do something on fasting and Ghazali. Something,
be very happy to.
You know, for our folks. So at least they get a taster of what is it you're doing here, what it's all about, and hopefully, you know, do purchase this series. Very important that we support our own publications, we support the publication, we support the project. At the end of the day, it's a great piece of work. Inshallah, I will reward you and the team, you know, and accept your deeds as well. So, and inshallah, if you're not going to join us during Ramadan Kareem, and once again, Sister Aisha, thank you so much for your time. It's been wonderful.
Thank you very much, Brother Mizan, and thank you for taking such good care of us in Bosnia.
No, alhamdulillah. I mean, it's the Bosnians who really did the great job. I've just been facilitating. Okay, thank you very much. Take care, folks, and hope to see you soon, inshallah. Take care.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Yeah.